Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
You're on the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me in the storm, weathering it together here in Knoxville, Tennessee, Brent Hubbs of Volquest.com. Brent, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well, my friends. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Yeah, we were talking before we got started. There's some trees. Like when my wife and I buy a house, we're wiping them all out. Like I'm a tree guy. Like walking around them, I don't want them on my property. Does that make sense? Like I love being around trees. I love going in the woods and nature and everything else. But actually around my property, I think I'm good. Let's just wipe them all down.
There's nothing near my house. We're good.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to worry about anything.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, it's hey, Austin Price and company doing Thursday night rivalry Thursday out here in the conditions. Built different, Brent.
Yes, absolutely. It's again, I hope everybody stays safe and nobody has any issues, no damage. Certainly thoughts and prayers are for everybody down in the state of Florida and Georgia where this thing's going through. But it feels like it's a good week to have an off week. And get some of this weather out of here. Hopefully it'll be out of here by the time people listen to this and be gone by lunchtime on Friday. And back to college football with some intriguing games to watch this weekend. Tennessee will have an eye on several of them, and then back to work for Tennessee on Monday to get ready for Arkansas.
Are you one of the people who enjoy, because I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, Brent. Are you one of those people that enjoy the weekend off and you're like, oh, I can kind of relax and watch other stuff? Or are you kind of like, this is messing up my routine. I really like what I've got cooking here every weekend. I don't actually like not getting a little amount of sleep just because I have so much stuff to do for Tennessee football. Which way do you land?
Well, you said so what do you think?
I think it's the latter.
I will greatly enjoy Saturday watching a bunch of ball games, be in front of the TV for sure. But when you're in a rhythm, you are in a rhythm. And, when you got your routine stuff you got to knock out and, first 4 weeks, you're kind of rolling right through it. You got to make sure you don't get knocked out of rhythm. So there's a part of me likes the rhythm, but I'm going to tell you, I will totally enjoy being in front of the TV from probably noon to midnight on Saturday. I will be pretty glued in front of the television. I don't have we're not going shopping. We're not going to the fall festivals. I'm not doing any of that. That's just kind of my day. I'm going to watch that. I want to watch some intriguing games. I want to see Arkansas, Texas A&M. I'm fascinated to see what Oklahoma looks like this week at Auburn. And then obviously everybody's got an eye on Georgia and Alabama. So I'll have as many games on at one time, bouncing around, watching as many as I can because it's rare that you get to watch a ton of ball. Night games are long days when you have night games. There is a little bit of a benefit that you get to watch the early stuff. And used to noon games were kind of just sort of dog games. But there's some good noon games now with the way the TV contracts are structured. You got the Big Ten with their noon game on Fox is pretty good. And ABC's had a couple of good noon games, entertaining games of interest with the SEC over there now. So it's not the old school TBS old school days of noon games, but it is better. There's some quality noon games to watch now compared to what it was a few years ago. No knock on those bad Big Ten games that we had to watch at noon on ESPN coming out of game day, but there's some good noon games. So I have enjoyed watching some noon football with Tennessee having all these night games, and I think we all better settle in for the night games. I think there's going to be quite a few of them.
Oh, if I had my way, I would I don't know. It seems like it's leaning towards Florida being a night game in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If it's a night, I'm doing everything I can to make that at night. I don't know if you feel the same, Brent, but I don't think Tennessee's going to have a problem with Florida in 3 weeks. We've talked about it over the years now in this program about never being easy against Florida. I don't want to say I feel really good about it. I would feel unbelievable about it if it's a night game. I don't think Florida can win in Neyland at night for the first big home game of the year. Do you think they would go dark mode or go gray in that one if they get that at night? Or do you think they'll go traditional? Because they still haven't done it, which I know the the general's quarters would not be thrilled if this was not an orange and white affair on Saturday night against Florida.
I don't know. I mean, there would be certainly a thought to doing the dark mode game. I think there's been a lot of people have kind of projected that the Kentucky game would be a dark game mode, but I'm sure some players would enjoy the dark mode. I don't know that fans would go bananas against the dark mode. I mean, those uniforms have been pretty popular because Tennessee's played pretty well in those uniforms, and everybody likes them at night. You know, the thing with the Kentucky game, is that a guaranteed night game? Because do they look real good in the sunshine? I don't know, but they look really good under the light. So, and I do think Florida is going to be a night game. I don't think tennis that TV is going to want to put Tennessee and Florida opposite of Texas OU in the Red River rivalry. Now, maybe they do. I mean, we know we've already got a night game with Ole Miss and LSU that week, and that may turn out to be a better matchup than the other two games. Nobody saw that coming at the start of the year, but I mean, OU's beat up. I mean, bad. I think they're down 5 receivers this week.
Yeah.
And a running back. I mean, Tennessee beat the brakes off of them physically in that game. So, I mean, it's locked into the afternoon affair. Maybe Florida at 6 instead of 7:30 because you've got the Ole Miss LSU game in there. So maybe it's a 6 instead of that 7 o'clock start. But
still dark. That's all I need. I need it at night. I need Neil and Rock, and I need fans tailgating all day for it.
It just feels like it may be a night game, and we haven't seen many of those, obviously, but in Knoxville. So in that matchup, so it should be fun if that's what it ends up being.
What time did the Wilhoit kick game happen? Because it ended at night.
I guess that was a night game. I mean, did that game start at night?
That's what I'm trying to remember.
It did, but I mean, that's 20 years ago, man.
Yeah.
It's 20. We're old, right?
And I mean, that we actually had this discussion with More Important Issues earlier this week. Do you think that's between the two kicks, the Wilhoit kick or the McGrath kick against Alabama? What do you think is the more iconic kick for Tennessee in Tennessee football history?
The more improbable kick was Wilhoit because of the distance and everything. The more iconic kick is the McGrath kick because it ended the streak. It beat, and it slayed the Dragon. It slayed Nick Saban. You got the win over Saban before he left. No offense to Ron Zook, but you got the win over Saban before he got out of Dodge. So I think the more iconic kick was the 22 win with McGrath, and just getting into that position to kick the ball and who you were beating and where you were at in that improbable season that was unfolding there. And listen, 2004 was pretty improbable when you look at it with a freshman quarterback, but that wasn't, I don't think anybody viewed that Florida team as, just a great Florida team. But it was a more improbable kick because he just missed an extra point. I mean, how in the world do you come back and drill that kick the way that he did? So I think they're both up there pretty high. But I would think most people would say breaking the streak over Alabama was I guess, a more iconic kick, if you will. Plus, listen, and here's the other thing, too. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but CBS caught that one perfectly, right?
Yeah.
Like they make the kick, and Nestler's got the "Here They Come," and then we go to the drone shot. We've got all the fireworks going. I mean, from a cinematography standpoint, like that director sitting back afterwards smoking a cigarette, going, "Man, I nailed that thing. Like we didn't miss anything in the end of that game," which probably creates a more iconic look as well because they. Give CBS credit, man. They totally nailed the end of that game. They didn't miss a trick in the last minute of that football game.
And it also just didn't feel like it was going in. Do you remember what you were thinking when you saw it from the press box? Did you think it was going in? Because when I saw, I almost fell over. I was just like, it's not even close. That was such a terrible ball, and I think it was tipped to the line. I didn't think it had a prayer, and it just snuck through.
So I learned a long time ago from Mike Keith. He gave me some sound advice about, hey, when there's a moment like that, make sure you stay out of the way. Don't get in the way of the call. Okay, that you're not calling that. That's not your role. You don't want your analyst to jump into the middle of it and be a part of it. You've got the signature end of John Ward's final football call, and he's counting it down, and he's going into the national champion, is clad in orange, and you got Bill Anderson chiming in, what a year, and it's like, I don't know that you really want that there. So I actually took my headset. I've got my headset on, and I take the microphone of my headset, and I move it above my head. I just moved the mic up here because I didn't know if my engineer had me muted or not, and I just did not want to gasp. I didn't want to do anything. Like my whole job was like, just keep your mouth shut. Don't do anything to mess up whatever happens here. And then I've got the binoculars on, and my whole thing is I'm watching the line of scrimmage. I have never watched a kick to know if it's gone in or not. My whole thing as a spotter is, because listen, the play-by-play guy knows where the ball's going, right? Like he sees if the ball's in flight. That's he doesn't need somebody to spot him the goalpost. He's seeing that. But what he can't see is you can't see if the ball's blocked. And if it is, who blocked it? So I've got my whole binoculars on the line of scrimmage. And I'm also trying to glance over at Saban. Is he going to call a timeout? Is he not going to call a timeout? Because you may set that thing up to kick it. And if you're doing a good job as a spotter, if the timeout got called. The play-by-play guy is going to call it. He's going to call the kick because they call that timeout so late. Ball snapped, it's kicked. As the play-by-play guy, you don't know, right? You just go ahead and call it all the way through, as if you didn't hear a whistle or not. So I'm looking to see if he calls timeout, and then I'm at the line of scrimmage, and I thought they blocked it. I thought there was a great shot of blocking. So I'm trying to identify who blocked the kick, and then just stay out of the way. But yeah, when you watched it come off his foot, it was a little bit of a false step. It didn't feel right. Bama got great inside pressure. It didn't feel right. And you're kind of like, here's Tennessee. They were in the moment to win it. Now you're going to overtime. It's kind of what you're thinking. And then all of a sudden, it's just a melee after that. But yeah, you're just trying to do your job. You're trying to stay out of the way, and you're trying not to be wrong. That's the whole thing there, is you just can't be wrong. And so shut up, keep your eyes open, and whatever happens, happens. And then after the fact, you can take a deep breath and do what I did and go, holy crap, they just beat Alabama. Like, just beat them. They didn't fluke into it. They beat them. They beat them for 60 minutes. So it was fun.
Yeah. Now this year, they just might beat them, and it's not a big deal. They might just beat Alabama.
I think it's still always a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it won't feel like an upset. It won't feel like getting this. It's not. It'll feel because Tennessee for whatever reason, Tennessee and Alex Golish especially have played Nick Saban and Alabama extremely well over the last 4 years. Tennessee, I think, wins that game last year if they convert one more time in the red zone in the first half. If they're up 3 touchdowns, I don't think Alabama's getting up off the mat instead of 2. Like 2 felt reasonable going into the locker room with the ball to start. I just think it feels different, and I wonder if you agree, but I think 3 touchdowns, it's over. I don't think Alabama's coming back from that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Tennessee got a great score right at the end of the half, and you thought, okay, but it's one of those deals when Tennessee last year goes into the half, you're sitting there thinking about what could have been.
Yeah.
Because they're in the red zone and they just didn't finish in the red zone. And that's why, for me, the discussion of red zone offense and that improvement from last year to this year is a critical step for this offense. And they've been okay in the red zone thus far this year. They haven't been great. It's a concern because had they finished in the red zone better last year, particularly in that game in the first half, I think you're 100% right. I think that's a win in Tuscaloosa because I'm not sure where the Alabama fan base is. I'm not sure where Alabama is because that's such a different place for them if they go into a locker room down 2 scores. You go in the locker room, or 3 scores. You go in the locker room down 2 scores, say, hey, we get 1 to start the second half right here. Game on. And that's, obviously what happened. So just huge missed opportunities in the red zone in the first half was the difference in that football game.
Transitioning a little bit to Nico, now that we have 4 starts in the regular season, 5 total, 5-0, has he been about what you anticipated based on what you saw all spring and summer and what you heard? And where has he been maybe better than you anticipated? And what are some lingering questions you still have about his game and his feel through 4 weeks?
I think he's been good. I think he's kind of been what you thought. He's got good accuracy. He's got poise. I think I won't say his poise has been better, but you just didn't know. He had to prove that to you. They haven't had confusion at the line of scrimmage. They haven't He hasn't tried to do too much. We see quarterbacks out there, young quarterbacks at all levels, trying to do too much, right?
Jackson Arnold last week.
Jackson Arnold last week. We've seen Will Levis try to do too much at times. Other quarterbacks, rookie young quarterbacks. Listen, what Jaden Daniels did was unbelievable, right? But I mean, you just don't see. You see young quarterbacks trying to make a hero play instead of playing to the next play, and I think Nico has been really good at limiting those mistakes. I think he's thrown one really bad ball, and that was the first interception he threw at NC State. I just think that was a bad decision. I don't know if it was a bad ball, but I think it was a bad decision. I don't think anything else mistake-wise has really been on him. I mean, maybe he should have protected the ball better on the strip fumble, but one of them he couldn't feel. The other one, maybe the ball could have got out a little quicker, but I can't put that on him. So from that part, it's kind of what I thought he would be, and I give him credit. Honestly, I thought they would be a little more, I guess, explosive in the passing game. I know they've hit big plays, but I thought it would be maybe a little bit more than what we've seen, particularly given the way he started against Chattanooga. But for him to be at his best, they've got to keep him cleaner. They've just got to protect him better. He's just been hit. I thought he was hit too many times in the NC State game, and obviously he was under a lot of pressure in the Oklahoma game. You look at their numbers and his play action pass numbers, they're fantastic. I mean, he's completing well over 70% of his throws in play action pass looks, and he's got like 6 touchdowns and 700 or 800 yards. I mean, he's been at his best when they've got play action working, and he can really work the middle of the football field. I think if they could have protected him better Saturday night, I think they could have. I'm not saying they would have hit 2 more Dante Thornton plays, but I think they could have hit more splash plays in the middle of the football field with the safeties coming down hard the way they were. I think they could have got their eyes, but they just couldn't protect well enough. So they've got to protect him better. But I think he's played. I think he's played well. I mean, he's missed some RPO reads, right? He's missed some open receivers. I mean, I think I'm not trying to give him a plug here, but I think Aaron Murray does a terrific job with the breakdown piece that he does. I think he breaks it down very simplistic. He doesn't do Nico every week, but he did him in the after the NC State game and after the Oklahoma game, and I found it very educational for me because I don't get to see the all 22 view, and so for him to show some things that he's probably missed a handful of plays, but for a guy that young, man, I mean he's been good. I don't think any Tennessee fan should have any worry, concern about where Nico is and his growth and development right now. I think he's playing well.
Yeah, no, Aaron's awesome, and what he saw, I think when a couple weeks ago when I asked him about it with that interception against NC State, the first one, was just that he made that similar play and made that similar throw the week prior. So it's a throw that he can make. So that's what I think issues.
But is that a throw that you can make against a better defense than what you were playing the first couple of weeks? And I think that's the learning lesson.
Right.
And again, I mean, there's going to be those. The thing that I appreciate with him that I think he's doing a better job of than maybe he has done in practice, particularly back in the spring. I think he threw a pretty good number of interceptions in the spring because there was a thought that I think he thought he could squeeze everything in.
Yeah.
And so I think there's been a nice adjustment to him of when you get into games. It's one thing to let it rip on the practice field and see if you could do those things. It's another thing in the games to understand, to take care of the ball and make quality decisions. And I think he's made quality decisions through 4 games. I mean, I really do. I don't think his decision-making has been bad at all.
Well, and we talk about the receivers, and I kind of wonder too. So now we're going in to basically nearly a year and a half of just the realization of how good Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman were. And I think fans may have overthought or maybe overlooked just how special they were schematically in this Tennessee offense. Maybe part of it was just need and necessity. They had to play a lot, so they got a lot more reps. They were a lot more comfortable. But those 2 guys are on NFL rosters. Hyatt's obviously playing tonight with the Giants against the Cowboys. Tillman still hanging around with the Browns. I I kind of wonder because Tillman, as you know, like wasn't just this high profile blue chipper when he came in, and he was not a hypo guy, and he stayed with the staff, and it, it blossomed into an NFL career for him. Um, I kind of wonder, and I think you talked about it on this week's one of the podcasts this week on Volquest. I thought was interesting was just because I think a lot of fans are looking at Squirrel, and we've talked for years in this offense that the slot, generally speaking, has performed the best, and it's the easiest spot to rack up a lot of stats. But because Tennessee's having to go 12 personnel a lot more, Squirrel's off the field, Nimrod's off the field, Mike Matthews potentially is off the field in that spot because they're having to go 12 personnel for protection stuff, or it's just a look that Heupel and Halsey really like with this group because of that trio of tight ends right now. I still haven't gotten my finger on what is. I don't even know if it's necessarily wrong or if it's actually coming, because I think some fans have still just penciled in because Nico is flashing, because Tennessee is rolling in so many different areas, that deep, consistent passing attack is coming back to like what we saw in 2022. I don't think you can assume that at this point. I think we're seeing enough data where like maybe teams are just taking that away more, and they've learned Tennessee's offense a lot more. Maybe it's just those kind of guys were just more special than we realize. I don't know. I go back and forth. Where do you currently land right now, Brent?
Well, I think you have to put into the equation the amount of time opponents have put into trying to get a handle on Tennessee's offense. Listen, I mean, you study teams every offseason is what you do. Okay. Go back to 2021. Tennessee didn't have nearly enough horses to win to beat Georgia in Knoxville. And they didn't. They ran out of gas, they got blown out. But look at the first half of that game. Look at early in that game. Velus Jones at the slot spot is wide open twice. They missed him once. They hit him on another. Tennessee moved the ball. I mean, they moved it. They haven't done that since against Georgia. Is that because Georgia got vastly better? We know Tennessee got better. Is that because Georgia suddenly had better Jimmys and Joes? Or did Kirby Smart spend a summer going, you know what? I got to figure out an answer to this thing. And I think he's found some answers to it. I think Saban probably maybe didn't spend as much time, and they torched the safeties in 22. And I think because they were so good in 22, the assumption was, man, I mean, that nobody could stop them, right? I mean, it's just there. It's just there's nobody can stop them. Hyatt is very, very different as a slot receiver than Squirrel. It's a different. They did different things because he was so long in the way that he played and the way that he could attack safeties. And they obviously could protect pretty well. Darnell Wright was good at tackle. So if you had to help at the tackle spot, it was on the other side. And people were still trying to figure it out. And some people have figured it out a little bit better than others, I think, right? I mean, Tennessee's run the switch route for touchdowns like 7 times against Kentucky in 3 years. I mean, they haven't figured out the switch route yet. But I do think part of it is teams not figuring it out, but teams playing it different. And then it goes back to where's Tennessee's patience level. I think if you would have asked Tennessee game plan wise going into NC State what they thought was going to happen, they thought NC State was going to be in drop coverage. They were going to run it effectively to the point that NC State said, we got to get out of this, and we got to put more people in the box to stop the run. And then when they do that, then Tennessee's going to go bombs away, and they're going to get super, super explosive, super vertical in the passing game. You watch that game, NC State's playing in the third quarter the same way they played in the first quarter defensively. Tennessee said, okay, death by 1,000 paper cuts. We'll just keep running for 6, 8, 10-yard chunks, and we'll just run. And hey, we're fine. We'll stay in two tights. We'll stay in that personnel grouping, which I think surprised Tennessee, because I think they felt like that grouping and the establishment of the run game would force NC State to change, and then Tennessee could manipulate some things vertically in the passing game. Oklahoma, I mean, I think I'll say this: their safeties and nickel guy are a lot better than I thought they would be. I thought they were good players. Tennessee down 2 tackles in that game. It's hard to help both sides. It's hard to max protect with giving help to the right and left. Nico's getting hit. He's got 2 sack fumbles. I think Tennessee said, you know what? Let's lean on the defense. Let's get out of here. So I think for Tennessee's passing game to explode the way fans hoped it would, and 22 was a record-breaking year. We may not see it like that again, but to get back to that or to get closer to that, they're going to have to protect better. And I think that's where it starts. If they can and get the protection tightened up a little bit, then I think you will see Tennessee more explosive.
Do you think because we've talked so much about like how awesome it is that Tennessee's able to rotate in so many positions. Do you think wide receiver is actually one of those spots where shrinking is actually maybe a key to unlocking some of this consistency downfield? Like Brazzell just getting a bunch of reps, Thornton just going with your 4, Thornton, Brazzell, Squirrel, and Brew, and just riding it out just to get them as many reps as possible to get comfortable with Nico. Is that maybe the way to build some of that chemistry down the field?
No, I think Mike Matthews can play. I think he and Nico have good chemistry there. I don't think that's an issue. The question is, if they can protect, then I think they're going to bounce in and out of 2 tights and 4 wides and, some of that stuff, which will make it really hard for defensive coordinators to prepare for. I mean, the whole two tight end thing is a whole different layer for teams to prepare for that you haven't seen. So now I don't know that they're going to go, 7 deep at that position, but I do think they're going to play, anywhere from 5, 6 guys at that spot. I mean, you're going to see Brew. It's going to be hard to get Brew off the field. Brew's playing really well. He and Nico have a good chemistry. Brew's faster and more explosive than he's been.
He blocks well.
Yeah, I think he's your bell cow. Dante Thornton's clearly your big play guy. Brazzell's a guy I thought would be more productive through the first 4 games. I really did. I thought that he would be a guy who would really be more productive than what he's been to this point. I don't think he's been bad, but I thought he would be a little bit more explosive, if you will, more chunk plays out of him. But he's going to play. Squirrel's going to play. I think you got to get Mike Matthews, involved and going. And what's that, 5? Something like that. I think that's probably where you're settling in at. Squirrel, Nimrod, Brazzell, Brew, Matthews. Am I forgetting anybody?
Thornton.
Yeah, Thornton. Okay, 6. Yeah, I think you're going to be. I think you're 5 and Matthews coming to be the 6th guy. However you however you can rotate him in moving forward.
Would you be surprised if he was in the starting lineup at some point this year?
Yeah, because I don't think the starting lineup matters. So
maybe let's rephrase it. Do you think you would be surprised if he's in one of the 3 highest snap counts for receivers?
Yeah, it would not surprise me if he has a heavier rotation than what he's seen has seen to this point. I think he played 2 or 4 snaps against Oklahoma.
Yeah, he really wasn't on the field that much.
No, but again, they were in 2 tights, and it was kind of protect and let's get home and that type of thing. So I do think you will see if they are playing 3 and 4 receivers, I think you'll see that snap count go up. Now, if they stay in 2 tights, everybody's snap count at receiver is going to be a little bit down because I think you're going to lean hard on Brew McCoy at one side, and then you're probably rotating Brazzell and Thornton on the other side. So I think a lot of it depends on how much they stay in that 12 personnel with 2 tight ends.
Do you think Arkansas is going to be more of a challenge for Tennessee than Oklahoma was on Saturday?
I think they're more dangerous on offense. I don't think they're nearly as good defensively as Oklahoma. I don't think they're great on offense. I think they play backyard football on offense. The quarterback is a guy he's a runaround guy who can make some plays. He's a roller coaster guy. When he gets hot, he really gets going. He's been good, and then when he gets cold, it's pretty erratic. So you got to speed him up. You got to make him uncomfortable as much as you can. Tennessee obviously has got a defensive line they think they can win, and they should be able to win against a lot of offensive lines. They just can't let him get outside the pocket and do backyard football stuff, right? You gotta hem him up and let him go. I think that I think for the fans that are like, well, I mean, that's scary because you saw what, Michael Hawkins did in the fourth quarter against OU. I think that was a little bit different for a couple of reasons. One, I don't know that Tennessee spent much time preparing for Michael Hawkins. Two, when Hawkins got hot and got going, Tennessee had quite a few really young players on
Yeah.
defense on the field. I mean, Spillman, and they were not their top two, not their top two rotations at linebacker. They had a couple of young defensive ends on the field that he kind of broke contain on. So I don't think Tennessee has a problem with a mobile quarterback. I think those young guys didn't play some responsibilities right. That's where I think old Oklahoma fans have some fool's gold on Michael Hawkins based on that one quarter, right? I mean, it's like, oh, okay, he's so much better than Jackson Arnold. I'm like, yeah. I mean, Jackson Arnold's obviously not very good, but I don't know that you're setting him down and putting Jaden Daniels on the field for you. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I don't think that's
Well, the
necessary.
Hugh Freeze quote, he's not throwing it to the other team, which is a plus. Like Michael Hawkins is keeping control of the ball, which is
And I wonder where both of those teams are mentally, because their head
Yeah.
coach has just decided to air all their laundry publicly, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Brent Venables like, well, we don't even have that play in our system. Well, your kid ran it, so I mean, I don't think he got out there and pulled the old backyard football with a couple of sticks and rocks and drew it up in the dirt for all the kids to tell them where to go. So he obviously
Yeah.
thinks you have it in the offense. And then Hugh Freeze has blamed everybody but himself. So I don't know where the mental makeup is for both of those offenses going into that game, which makes it pretty fascinating.
I'm really interested in that game.
I am too. I'm going to be curious to see where Jackson Arnold is headspace for the rest of this year. Is he there? Is he checked out? Because I just feel like at some point Oklahoma is going to need somebody to spell Hawkins because he is a freshman, and I think there are going to be some moments where he plays like a freshman, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's going to be some moments I think where he makes some freshman mistakes. And do you turn to Jackson Arnold and go, "Hey man, go give us a series here"? And he looks at you in a fog like he's disinterested, or does he tell you no? Or, in the world we're living in now, he may tell you tomorrow, hey, I'm heading to portal. I'm redshirting the rest of the year. I mean, you just don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah.
I think the same thing in Auburn. When you got quarterback yo-yo going on, it's not good. And so
No.
that's a fascinating game on Saturday.
Yeah, I could see the Arkansas game being one where on Sunday we're writing about it, Brent, and I think we look at it and we're like, wow, Arkansas had like 500 yards of total offense and they lost by 3 touchdowns to Tennessee. Like I could see the stats looking very weird in that game where they lost the turnover margin to Tennessee by 2. Taylor Green had 300 plus total yards, but they made mistakes in the red zone or just did things that Tennessee took advantage of, because that's the other thing is Tennessee has done a really good job of taking advantage of their opportunities through 4 games. I think they don't really play with their food. And I think that's something what we saw in the fourth quarter. It kind of, I saw someone on Twitter make this comparison, but I think it's an apt one. Oklahoma, Tennessee was a lot like Georgia, Tennessee in 22, where the score was 2 touchdowns at the end. But that game was over at the half. Like you just kind of knew going at like there, it was over. Tennessee just was not going to be able to realistically challenge Georgia on that Saturday. That's kind of how it was with Tennessee, Oklahoma. Like we went to the half and it felt like it was over. Like Tennessee was like, oh, the defense, we can cruise, kind of like to your point, we can cruise here, but it's hard for the defense to stay mentally locked in. I think when you feel like you're playing prevent and playing keep away, like let's just get out of here and grind the clock out, I think it's hard to stay as vicious and tenacious as Tennessee's defense has been through the first 4 weeks, when you're kind of when you have that just knowledge that the game just feels over and that you're just riding out the clock and you're just kind of it all feels unnecessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and you also you had some guys who were, middle of the third quarter on, were very, very lightly in the rotation, if in the rotation at all. I mean, we hadn't seen Joshua Joseph for about 3 series. And then all of a sudden, hey, they've crossed the 30-yard line going in, go back, go in there and don't give up a touchdown, get revved back up deal. I mean, I think,
Yeah,
I think
it's just weird.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of it. The interesting thing with Arkansas, you talk about, weird and what stat lines may look like and what that deal. I mean, they were exceptional in the first quarter against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
They look like $1 million. They haven't come close to looking that way since. I mean, they were bad in the second half. I didn't think they were very good against Auburn. They obviously did not play well against UAB. They nearly let Oklahoma State beat them twice. Now you're going to Jerry's World in Dallas and taking on what will be a physical defensive front from Texas A&M. I mean, A&M's pretty physical up front on defense. What do they look like coming out of that game? Where are they? Are they beat up? How do they play there? Quarterback's taking a lot of hits. I think those are things to kind of keep an eye on this week with that game moving forward, because what you know about Tennessee is coming off an open date. Tennessee should be fresh. And what we've seen through 4 games is Tennessee defensively is as physical as anybody in the country at all 3 levels of the defense. We've seen it from the defensive linemen, Tyree West and Elijah Simmons and on and on. I mean, do we not? I mean, Keenan Peely's a violent, he's been a violent linebacker. Arian Carter's been physical, and they've been physical in the back end. Jermod McCoy's a physical player. Jacoby Thomas, we've all seen. So Tennessee's pretty. That's just one of the more physical defenses, top to bottom, that you've seen out of Tennessee. So you better strap it on. I mean, look at Oklahoma this week. I mean, they got 3 or 4 guys out of the game. Tennessee knocked out of the game. They're just not. The Tatum kid at running back's not playing this week after playing Tennessee. Tennessee just kept beating on them. And the grind of this league can be hard. That's why the bodies Tennessee's playing with are so important on the defensive side. And I think they can physically wear you out in 60 minutes, particularly up front. I know that's been Tim Banks' goal the entire offseason.
And then, we talk about the awesome depth at Tennessee in so many different position groups, highlighted by defensive line linebacker through 4 weeks. The offensive line, we're kind of seeing how thin things are in certain spots. And I think the biggest concern for fans coming into the year was behind Cooper, because you saw the first 4 games last year and the difference with having Cooper and not having Cooper. I think Satterwhite's going to be a really good player. I'm really excited about Satterwhite in the future. You don't want to be in a spot where you have to go to Satterwhite at center at this point with Florida and Bama and just some big, even if they're at home, you just don't want to be in that spot. However, I think because you had J.J. Crawford, you've had Gerald Mincey, you've kind of done a really good job over the years patching the tackles. At Tennessee, you didn't notice, the most iconic offensive line moment in the Alabama game was J.J. Crawford throwing up and shaking his head yes at either Dallas Turner or Will Anderson. I forgot who it was on that side. But I think Tennessee fans have just you've come to expect that the offensive line was going to be okay. With the tempo, with the scheme, that offensive line just hasn't been something we've worried about through 4 years of the Heupel era. I think what you saw against, and what you talked about, he got hit a lot against NC State. He got hit a little bit because against Kent State, Nico's taken some shots early here at Tennessee, and you kind of worry about with his frame and everything else. But I think what fans did not anticipate was the reality or the uncomfortable reality where Tennessee is so deep in so many different areas. You now have a quarterback who's 4th in Heisman odds right now and hasn't even played like a Heisman candidate to this point. So he's had 5 starts and he's only going to get better. And then you look at Dylan Sampson, who's just been your best back in the Heupel era, which I didn't see coming. I didn't think he would be better than Jalen Wright from what we saw a year ago. And I think he's been better as an all-around player than Jalen. And Jalen was awesome last year. And you look at the tackle spots where you're without John Campbell for a lot of the game on Saturday, and you don't have Lance Hurd. Dane Davis is fine in a pinch. Larry Johnson actually graded well. Larry Johnson was okay on Saturday night. But you're kind of like, oh, this could change. This changes the entire offense. Can we win a national title? We have people, Colin Cowherd, predicting Tennessee to win the national championship now. When you're playing this kind of game, when you've exceeded, or not even exceeded, when you've gotten to this point in your program's arc, the margin of error is so thin now, because if your goal now is not to just win 10 wins, because you were ahead of schedule in 2022, that was all oh, this is awesome. We did not think we were going to be here. Now there are expectations. Now you're hearing national folks being like, Tennessee should be a playoff team. ESPN FBI has them as an 80% chance of making the CFP. I think you and I are on the same page. We'd be pretty surprised at this point if Tennessee does not make the college football playoff after taking care of business and how they've looked early here. But if the game is winning a national title, and with some of these defensive lines that Tennessee is going to see if they make the college football playoff with Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Bama, like there's just a lot of Texas. If your tackle situation, the injury stuff there lingers all season long, in your estimation, based on what you've seen early on and what Tennessee has behind Campbell and Hurd, do you think that could ultimately be the difference between Tennessee running the gauntlet and not?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, because it's a drop off there, right? I mean, you talked about in 22. Yeah, I mean, it was a patchwork. It was a patchwork on one side. The other side had a first round draft pick there. So you're patching one side, you're not patching both sides. And what you got into on Saturday is you had backups at both positions. And that's hard to deal with. I mean, that's hard to manage. That's hard to handle. It's hard to scheme around and all those types of things. So you've got to keep, you've got to get healthy. You got to get those guys back on the field. Tennessee's not alone. I mean, in this day and age of the portal, most teams are not running, three deep, tackles that, hey, there's no drop off, or hey, he's not young, or hey, I mean, yeah, we got a third year tackle who's been waiting his turn and he's just sitting there playing. No, those guys go in the portal. See Lance Hurd. Lance Hurd left LSU because he didn't want to be the third tackle. He wanted to be one of the top two tackles. Okay, but there was two guys in front of him he wasn't going to beat out, right? Andre Turrentine left Ohio State because he looked and said, well, the best I'm going to be right now is the third safety, because they've got two guys, one guy in my class and one guy younger than me, who are the starters, so I'm going to go somewhere where I've got a better opportunity. So it's hard to build depth. That's why you can't make the comparison of Tennessee's defensive tackles to Tennessee's offensive tackles from a depth standpoint. The idea that Rodney Garner has done it right and that Glenn Ellerbe has failed is not an accurate depiction, because the fact that all those guys came back to play another year under Rodney Garner, it's crazy. I mean, it's to get all those guys back is really unheard of. That's why what they're doing on the defensive front is not replicated by everybody around the country. Now, from an offensive line standpoint, you would certainly like for Dane Davis to play better than just being a guy in the pinch, because he's been in your program. He started now 9 games for you. He did not play very well against Oklahoma. He has to play better. I think Larry Johnson is, now that he's lost some weight and got himself a little more athletic and can move a little better, he's doing a better job. Both of those guys handle bull rushes, handle bigger ends better than they handle the speed edge guys, and the blitzing safety or the blitzing nickel that you got to really kick hard out there to get. Those are hard for those guys to get to. Now, if it's a power guy coming straight at you, it's a little bit better of a matchup for them. And if you have one guy, if you have Lance Hurd, who you brought in to be your anchor at left, if he goes the rest of the year, now you're trying to manage the right side. And you're trying to manage it with 3 guys: John Campbell, Larry Johnson, Dane Davis. Okay? Campbell looks like, to me, that he's going to have a hard time playing a full game. He's not got through a half of football yet without coming off the field. He's not played more than 40 snaps in a game. So you better plan on platooning at that tackle spot. So now you need 3 tackles. Going into the game, you need 3 tackles if Hurd's healthy. Okay? A lot of teams have 3 tackles. Start to get that 4th tackle, there's a bit of a drop-off there. Where Tennessee got to is they got to tackle 3 and tackle 4 on Saturday at the same time, which is not that's bad news. I mean, I don't care who you are. Pull up Texas's roster, pull up Georgia's roster. If you're sitting there going, hey, you're going against a good defense active and can rush the passer, and they blitz and do a lot of different things, and you're playing with tackles 3 and 4, I mean, that's a drop off. I mean, and a lot, and that's why Tennessee's defense is so different, because when you go to safeties 3 and 4, how big of a drop off is there from Will Brooks to Jacoby Thomas, right? I mean, you feel pretty good about that deal. Now, what does corners 3 and 4 look like if Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy is not out there, and it's Jalen McMurray and Jordan Matthews? You don't feel as good about that, right? That's normal.
Yeah.
Okay. What's not normal is 13 defensive linemen that you don't even know who's in the game until they make a tackle, right? Oh, that was Jackson Moy. Okay. Jason Jenkins, you got 5 snaps and you have a half sack and a tackle for loss for a safety. Okay. Congratulations. Maybe next week you'll get 7 or 10, but we've got this rotation of guys. You just can't make those comparisons. There's not many teams, and you could even go back to, Philip Fulmer's best teams that he had. Well, you start getting deep into your depth at the offensive line position, there is a drop off. That's why you got to stay healthy there, and Tennessee's got to stay healthy, and Larry Johnson and Dane Davis have to grow and get better. Because listen, I think Jesse Perry's got a chance to be a good player. I know they're pushing there, but that's probably not realistic. That you want to put him out there protecting Nico's blind side. And Bennett Warren's been here since June. He's not ready. That doesn't mean they can't play. That's a developmental spot, and those guys aren't ready yet. So, and you don't have a guard you could slip out there and feel comfortable with. So you got to manage those guys, keep them healthy, and you got to go into every game knowing, hey, I'm going to play 3 tackles, which is not the case, right? Darnell Wright played every snap.
Yeah.
He played every snap. Now, they did platoon a little bit, I guess, on the left side that year. But, it's one of those things where they were pretty good, pretty comfortable with 3 tackles. Tennessee's got to get more comfortable with 3 tackles, whether that's Larry Johnson or Dane Davis, and they got to get Lance Hurd healthy and keep him healthy.
I like it. Your favorite defender to watch for the Vols this season has been who? Brent Hubbs.
I absolutely love watching Jermod McCoy play. Tennessee fans, and put me in that category, have long looked for someone who played the slant the right way. Either broke the play up or put the helmet in the back and dislodged the football. I mean, he's made a really nice PBU in every game he's played. He made a great play on the 4th down stop against NC State. I realized the game was over, but that was a big-time play. His PBU to open the game at Oklahoma was great communication to pass that off and to separate him from the ball there. The interception was easy. They threw it right to him. He made a great play against Chattanooga on a little skinny post at the goal line where he reached over the receiver and batted the ball away, but didn't put his backhand on the guy's back and get and turn him and get the pass interference call in the end zone that seemingly everybody gets. He stopped a slant against Kent State where he just played it perfectly. I have really, really enjoyed watching him play football. I think he's been the biggest transfer portal addition for Tennessee because of the way he's played and what he's done through the first 4 games.
Well, you also had so much turnover there where you kind of needed Jermod to be a plug and play because some spots you didn't need. Like Chris Brazzell, you would hope would be a plug and play good guy, but it hasn't really. Tennessee was number 1 in the nation in scoring.
There were 2 places. They needed Lance Hurd and they needed McCoy to be plug and play guys.
And we saw Hurd, what that looks like without Lance Hurd on Saturday.
And McCoy has solidified. Now what you can do, hey, that's a shutdown corner. I can roll safety coverage to the other side if I want to. I'm comfortable bringing a safety blitz there because I'm comfortable with him in one-on-one. I don't feel like he has to have over-the-top safety help all the time. That just gives you so much more flexibility when you feel like you got one guy who can shut things down. I mean, look at last year when Kamal Hadden was on the field versus when he wasn't. Tennessee gave up almost 80 yards more passing after Kamal Hadden got hurt than they did in the first 5 games Kamal Hadden played.
Yeah.
Okay, you say, well, they played some better offenses. Oh, okay, maybe they did, right? Maybe there's some of that. But they were good. They were better in the secondary with Hadden because he was a true man-to-man cover guy, and it gave you flexibility to do different things with your secondary. When he got hurt, you got much more into a cover 2 look. You got split safeties. You got to help over the top, and neither one of your corners played with great confidence, and they kind of kept the ball in front of you, and you gave up more yards.
Mm. And it's funny too, if you pause some of these Tennessee games through 4 weeks, Brent, I'm sure you see it like up there. Jermod's up at the line, like he's up in the wide receiver's face, and then Ricky at the top of the screen, it's a little bit further off. He's not as confident as Jermod. Jermod is right there, and it speaks to your point. Very physical, very comfortable, very confident.
Absolutely, and plays that, and it showed in the way that he's played. I mean, he's delivered. It's not just bravado. There's substance to the bravado.
He seems like a quiet kid. He seems like the opposite in a lot of ways.
But it's one of those deals where he carries himself with bravado. We've seen a lot of guys do that, and then, they tie up, get tripped up on a stutter go, or they get their ankles broke and, backpedal, 8 yards or whatever. I mean, like he backs up his quiet swagger very well.
Yeah. For me, I think for me, it just kind of, you brought him up at the top here, but Keenan Peely, I thought would be good. But what we saw in Virginia, it feels like he kind of had the Brew. It's like Brew and Keenan went on the same offseason, let's get as shredded as humanly possible together program, because he's so much more physical. He's so much faster closing. He's so good at reading what the quarterback's doing, where the play is going. He's just kind of, he feels like, I guess in school, where it feels like the kid is in, I guess, like regular classes, and everyone in the room is like, I think he might need to be challenged a little bit more. I think he's mastered this. I think he might need to move up a little bit. That's what it feels like with Peely. I feel like Peely is an NFL linebacker who is still playing college football, which is great for Tennessee, but that's how I feel watching him. I just feel like he's mastered being in a really good college football linebacker, and it's just kind of so far ahead of the curve now with his time and just what he's done this offseason to get right. I just think he's unbelievable. I did not think Keenan Peely was going to be this good, and I thought he would be good. I think he's been unbelievable.
Well, and it shows you how much they missed him a year ago.
Yeah.
And we just didn't realize it because 29 snaps didn't give you a sample size of what you were missing. The thing about him is I do think he's added some speed and quickness to play in space better. But, man, when you don't take false steps, you're a lot faster. When you don't go a half step the wrong way, or you don't lean the wrong way, and your first step is to your key, to where your eyes see the ball going, you're a faster football player. And I think that, man, he just sees it quick, reads it really well, and there's just not a lot of wasted movement from him getting to the football. He has been a blast to watch. I mean, he would be number 2. He would be number 2 in my book on those two guys in terms of that, because I'm not shocked by Dylan Sampson. I mean, maybe a little. Maybe are you pleasantly surprised? I mean, I'm much more surprised by Deshaun Bishop. I mean, I think we saw Sampson. And listen, hey, hats off to Jabari Small, right? I mean, how many people had him making an NFL roster? I mean, he was elevated to the 53-man. Now, he was inactive on Sunday, but he was elevated to the 53-man. The Titans absolutely like him and think that he's a guy that they can have some trust in if called upon. But I felt like Dylan Sampson was RB2 last year behind Jalen Wright. I mean, when I saw what he did in the Kentucky game and the way he closed that game out, it just felt like, man, that guy's going to really produce if he's given the time, and is given opportunities, and he certainly ran with those. So I'm not surprised there. I mean, my offensive surprises, but in a positive way, I mean, Miles Kitselman obviously stands out. The growth of the maturity of Dante Thornton, kind of where he's taken his game to, has been good. But I mean, in terms of entertaining to watch, I'm glued on that defensive side of the ball, particularly with Peely and McCoy, and I think Arian Carter. I think if you look at Arian Carter game 1 to game 4, it's a different football player.
Yeah,
I mean, you're watching the game slow down for him each and every week more and more, and as a result, he's playing better and better.
Final thing, and we'll get out of here, Brent. Through 4 weeks, what have you been most right about this Tennessee team coming into the year, and what have you been most wrong about this Tennessee team?
I think wrong has been probably Brazzell, because I was pretty bullish on Brazzell. I thought Brazzell would have a bigger impact than he's had, and I frankly thought he'd have a bigger impact than Dante Thornton. And that's certainly not been the case when you look at the big plays. I mean, Thornton's averaging 35 yards a catch or some stupid.
Thornton grinded the Javonte Payton tape this offseason. the man, he grinded the Payton tape.
Yeah. So I was wrong on the impact Brazzell has made. Now, we'll see where that's at in 3 or 4 more weeks. But to this point, I've been off on that one. Where have I been right? I mean, boy, I went out on a limb and said they'd be good on the defensive line. That was a big jump out there for me to suggest that they would be good on the defensive line.
Did you think they'd be the best in the country? Because I think they have a case to being the best in the country.
I thought they would be. I thought they would be really good. I love the way Tyree West finished the year last year. So I'm not shocked by his play. So, pleasantly surprised. He's been really effective. But I thought he finished the year really well, not just in the bowl game, but if you go back and look at his last couple of regular season games.
Vanderbilt game, he was good too.
Yeah, much more effective player. Everybody. This is now the question, right? In recruiting, the question always became, who's this year's Robert Meacham, right? Who's the surprise that nobody expected? The question now is, who's the off-season version of Jalen Hyatt? Who's the off-season version of Jalen Wright? A guy who really transforms in an off-season. The game they take the game more seriously and all those things. When you walk through the complex, when you're around in the off season, there was a different feeling in conversation with Joshua Josephs. I mean, he was in a different place mentally. He felt like a guy. He was more engaging to you. He was a guy who seemed more dialed into football. I don't think he's played perfect by any means, but he's been really effective. I thought he would take a step. His step has been really good. So there's a couple of guys within that group that have played better than most expected, which probably elevates that team's ability or that group's ability or how good they are compared to everybody else. But when you start talking about playing 13 guys and you don't care who the 13 are that you have out there, just regular, freely rotating, you're just in an embarrassment of riches compared to some other people. And so I thought they would be they had a chance to be one of the elite defensive lines. I think they're coached by one of the all-time great defensive line coaches in college football. I think they've completely bought into him. They bought into the old school, hard edge ways that he presents. And as a result, you look at the development, all those guys are better right now than they were a year ago. Even though Pierce is not getting the numbers, I don't think James Pierce is playing bad football right now. I know he's disappointed in numbers, but I think James is doing a lot of good things. But overall, that group has taken a nice step from last year to this year.
Brent Hubbs, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Volquest.com this week?
Well, tons of recruiting stuff. It's open date. Coaches are out on the road recruiting, so we got all the details of that, where they're at, who they're going to see. Had a bunch of recruiting updates, some highlights from some committed guys through their first 4 games of their high school season, what some of those guys look like out there. I've got on Friday afternoon, I went ahead and did a 10 things I think, which is a lot of the conversation we've had here. Some of that will overlap if you read that after you listen to this, but I still encourage you to do that. There's a couple of interesting stats in there that kind of paint a picture of what has helped Tennessee get off to this start that's put them in a place where people are talking about them as national title contenders. And then we'll have some more football stuff over the weekend, a little basketball news and notes here as well. And then we'll get through a football Saturday. I'll probably interact with you pretty good on the message board if you want to talk to me on Saturday while I watch the football. And then we'll be right back into game week routine with all of our regular content, getting you ready for what is the start of a fun, we think, fascinating, interesting, pressure-packed run of football games here, starting with a trip to Arkansas, and then everybody knows what's coming to Neyland Stadium for the next couple of weeks. And it's exactly where Tennessee fans had hoped they would be, and enjoy the ride because it's been a long time since you've been in this spot.
Enjoy the next 5. It seems like it's the Dondi extension and Danny and Randy. It's like just enjoy these next 5. Like
enjoy what do we call this? The decade of the 20. What are we calling this?
That's a good question.
What do you call? It's a decade, right? A 10-year span, because that contract, those contracts will essentially be up what 2030.
Yeah,
for Randy Boyd, and we think Dondi Plowman, and we think
Danny White,
John Compton on the chairman of the board, and those things. I mean, Danny White's contract's 230, but it's got automatic rollover on it, so that one's different. But you're in a great place right now in athletics because, and if you don't believe that alignment's important, all you got to do is look south down 75 to Gainesville, Florida, and you realize that alignment is really important. Tennessee's aligned really well right now. Got a chance to close out this decade on a really high note. Step back and enjoy the ride because it should be a lot of fun.
I love it. Brent Hubbs, always a pleasure, my friend, and we'll have to check back in again very soon.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you soon.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.